Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hello from wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us today. We have a treat in store for you. I've got one of the smartest people I've ever talked to when it comes to email deliverability, one of the best hair people I've ever met, Benny Rubin, who will be joining me on stage in a second. I'm going to give everybody a minute or two to trickle in. While we do, let me know in the chat where you're from. I'm coming at you straight from beautiful, sunny Northern California. And I also want to know, have your email stats been dropping over the last few months? We'll let people come in as we get the show going. And here's Benny. Look at this guy's hair. Isn't he handsome? Look at him.
Get out of here.
Yeah. Okay, we've got Florida in the house, Atlanta. We got somebody from Edmonton, Canada. Thanks for making it. Aloha from Hawaii. Hope you're staying safe out there. Milwaukee. Wow, we got lots of people in the house. Denver, India, Philippines. I've been watching a lot of basketball World Cup and the Philippines, incredible host nation. That's been so cool to see. Okay, San Francisco, Monterrey, Mexico, did I see Santa Monica? I'm seeing all kinds of stuff. I'm going to give this about 20, 30 seconds for more people to join us, and then we're going to hop in. Rashad is saying emails have been ineffective, interested on how to improve. Well, hopefully we're going to get into that. Resources on the back end of marketing. Yeah, Peter, I'm going to send you a link in this webinar where you can find some resources there. Okay. So are you ready for this, Benny?
Yeah. Oh, totally ready. If you can hear me, then we're ready.
What's that? I wasn't ready? Yeah. I'm ready now. We've got over 1,000 people live. And so let's get into this, y'all. Okay, our agenda today is we're going to run through a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to introduce myself briefly, but then I'm going to introduce Benny. Benny's going to talk about setting up the right infrastructure for email deliverability. I'm going to do a product demo of Apollo. I'm going to show you exactly what to do in Apollo to improve your deliverability today. You're going to come out of this webinar knowing a few things to do that will help you. And then Benny's actually going to come back in and talk about how to fix your deliverability if it's broken. Then we're going to go into a Q&A. And guys, this is live. It's not pre-recorded. So make sure to drop your questions in the Q&A section on the right. This is our webinar, why your emails land in spam and how to fix it. And it's brought to you by my employer, Apollo, the world's only end-to-end sales engine with over 270 million contact records, 70 million companies, and everything you need to grow your business or hit your quota if you're working in sales. Now, a couple things before we dive into our content. We are recording this, okay? So you are going to get a recording after the webinar. If you have to leave early, I'm going to be offended. Like, it's going to hurt my feelings, but I am going to send you the recording. Also, I do my best to keep an eye on the chat. That's why you'll see me look over here. It's where my second monitor is. But we have folks live with us right now from our team who will be answering your questions. If on the right-hand side of your screen, you click on the Q&A box, that's where your questions are going to get answered. So please put your questions there. And then lastly, please don't spam the chat, meaning don't try and sell things in the chat. This isn't the right forum for that. We will boot you from this webinar, and then that will ban you from all future webinars. It's really not a good look. So please don't do that. Okay. This is me. I'm Josh Garrison. I lead our content marketing and product education teams. I spent most of my career as a sales leader. And I want to do a really quick shout out to my team before I introduce Benny to you guys. If you guys haven't yet, my team runs a bunch of things on Apollo. We run our magazine, our knowledge base, and our webinars. If you haven't seen Apollo magazine, I highly recommend you check it out. I'm actually going to run a very quick little ticker, we call it, where I'm going to send you a link to the magazine right now. We profile the best salespeople in the world, and we talk to them and we tell you their secrets. So you're going to see this come across your screen right now. That'll take you straight to Apollo Magazine. While that runs, I'm going to introduce Benny Rubin. Benny is the CEO and founder of Senders.co. It is a deliverability-focused consultancy. He is, as I mentioned, one of the smartest people I've ever met on this topic. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand the time over to Benny now, who can continue telling you about himself and also walk you through how to improve your deliverability.
Sure. Let me grab the screen from you and we'll be off to the races. So as mentioned, I'm Benny Rubin. I'm the CEO of a company called Senders. Senders.co is our home on the web. I'm really excited to be here. We've been doing cold email, and I started this sort of cold email agency, email deliverability agency, in 2016. So most of the information I'm going to share today is very, very hard-earned advice. Truth be told, I had started cold emailing long before that as well. So by the time Apollo became ripe for folks like us to jump on, I was right in there. We have probably some of the highest number of seats of any user in the world for Apollo. We're true believers for sure. So jumping into the sort of meat of this thing, everyone here can agree that there are basically three mechanics of cold email outbound. There's the sendability, there's deliverability, and efficacy. And by sendability, I mean the ability to send as many emails as you need to hit your business goals. By deliverability, I'm talking about getting those emails into the target's inbox at a rate sufficient to hit the goals. And then efficacy is my catch-all term for doing this in a way that doesn't burn resources, and you can replenish the resources at the same speed that you can use them. It's also about doing this kind of intelligently and not like a dum-dum. That's a technical term, dum-dum. So that's sendability, deliverability, and efficacy. And if you don't mind, even though we've been on this slide for a while, I'd like to start with a little story. When I started doing cold email outbound, I immediately ran into sendability issues. I thought I had my sequences running as effectively as I could. I'd optimized them. I had a large group of people that I hadn't emailed yet. All I needed was more scale, and I needed to be able to send more emails. So I did the thing that seemed logical. I went from one mailbox sending to 2 to 3 and beyond, thinking that if I could sort of evade the limits that Google Workspace had placed on email, I could hit the scale I needed. Well-meaning folks on the internet, as I'm sure you've all found out, and maybe even some people in this chat as well, give lots of advice about how to do this. You need to choose domains that are close to your real domain. You should choose domains that are unrelated to your real domain. You should set up subdomains. You should warm up domains. You should use new domains. You should use old domains. You should buy IP addresses. You should use IP pools. You should use dedicated IP addresses. You should have no links. You should have more links, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I did what a lot of people do. I tried a bunch of things. And for the most part, I was able to send more emails. Sendability problems solved, right? But pretty soon deliverability problems cropped up. Spam reports, undelivered emails, low open rates, low reply rates. I was completely dejected. My livelihood and my clients' livelihoods are basically on the line. I'm sure some of you have been there. But then I had a realization. I realized I was missing something very, very fundamental. In my desire to evade restrictions placed on my sending, I had stopped acting like a legitimate business sender and started acting like a spammer, spoofer, or scammer. And if I could just stop acting like a spammer, spoofer, or scammer, I could send a virtually unlimited number of emails and have them delivered safely. So that was a major turning point for me. Almost all the information that I'm going to share today is about what came from that realization. Fundamentally, I realized that almost all the cold email advice out there was outsider advice. People who thought they needed to like pull a fast one on the internet to win. But thinking the exact opposite way was the way that I found success that I'm going to share with you today. So what do these terms mean? A spammer is someone who sends untargeted email to get someone to click on something. A spoofer, someone sending email pretending to be someone that they're not. And a scammer is someone trying to trick someone into doing something that they don't actually want to do. My companies and my clients weren't anything like these people. They were like you. They were SaaS data tools, data platforms, service providers, experts of various types, etc. They were legitimate business senders. Someone who's earnestly trying to send and deliver a targeted business solicitation email without pretending to be someone else or doing something shady. Remember sendability, deliverability, and efficacy? Today, we're going to look at those three fundamentals, but now through the lens of a legitimate business sender. And you'll see that the path into the inbox is much clearer, and so is the path out of the spam box. Today, I'm going to try to give you a definitive answer to the title of this webinar, why your emails land in spam and how to fix it. The advice here is based on hundreds of clients that we served as part of Senders and literally millions upon millions of emails that we have safely sent and had delivered on behalf of our clients. Don't hesitate with questions in the Q&A, and let's jump into it. Let's start with domains and subdomains. Here are your domain guidelines. Look them over real fast. All right. So spammers burn domains quickly. So using new domains can make you look like a spammer. Use aged domains, 30 days or more, and warm them up properly, starting after they've been around for 30 days. Unlike a spammer, you should not be sending emails out before they're ready to send. Spoofers create domains that look like legitimate company domains. So something like bankofamerica's.com. So you should choose domains that are similar to your main domain, but don't mess with the spelling. So bankofamerica-email.com or email.bankofamerica.com is far preferable than, replacing the L's with ones or something. Scammers use domains that don't match with what the email content says. So the domain came from bankofamerica's.com, but in the body of the email, there's like a link with a redirect or something that looks like a redirect that goes nowhere near anything that has to do with the subject of the mail. So you should make sure that the links in your email have a strong relationship to the email address and domain you're sending from. Does that make sense? So here's a pro tip. Subdomains are very useful. Subdomains, as you can see down in the examples, try.apollo.io is an example. They take on the age of the original domain, so you don't look like a spammer, because remember, it's an aged domain. They don't mess with the spelling of your domains, so you don't look like a spoofer, someone pretending to be someone else. And there's a close relationship between the subdomain and the links in your email, so you don't look like a scammer. Usually, they have their own reputation, unless you did something really, really bad with a subdomain or your main domain. And subdomains are also an efficient way to spin up new domains without having to buy more and more and more and racking up huge bills on your GoDaddy or whatever. Remember, subdomains still need DNS records and they need to be warmed up. Make sense? All right. Sidebar real fast. What is warming? Many of you might know, and later Josh will dig into some new Apollo tools that have to do with warming. Email warming is what it sounds like. You're using your email to send and letting the world know that your email exists and it's legitimate and shouldn't be put in spam. Warming works best when you're sending to an audience that supports and improves your email deliverability. So that's either an audience that, because of who they are, like people who have already engaged with other emails you've sent or something, or in the case of artificial emails, they're kind of programmed to act how you need. Those are good, obviously, because they contribute to making you look legitimate. Warming is not a panacea and it's not perfect by any stretch, but it has a place in the preparation and repair of domains. There'll be definitely more on warming later in this presentation, as mentioned. Okay, now let's talk about authentication and DNS. For all intents and purposes, this comes down to three things: SPF, DMARC, and DKIM. Those are text entries that sit in the back end of your GoDaddy, Namecheap, Google Domains, or wherever you house your domains, house your domain records. You need authentication like this no matter what domain you're sending from. There's no world in which you don't need these special strings of code put in the back of your website. I promise you. Make sure they're set up properly. Do not copy paste them from somewhere else or some other website you have, because they likely won't be right for you. Thankfully, there's lots of advice about this on the internet. And I believe in the last webinar that Apollo did, they went to some detail on setting up SPF and other things. I think Josh will probably send a banner across or something.
Yep. It's right now. So I made a 5-minute clip, guys. If you don't know how to set up SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, I made a video for you. So click on that banner. Please don't watch it right now. Benny's got some incredible content for you, but watch it after we walk through it step by step.
Watch it all. You got to watch everything. The thing you just can't forget is that this is not optional, honestly. And the reason why it's not optional is that if you look at my authentication guidelines here, not having these is like going to the border without a passport, basically. So SPF, DMARC, and DKIM are like an ID system for email, not dissimilar to something like a passport. Everyone here has passed a border at some point in their life. And if you haven't, this is your sign to go explore the world a little bit. The border guard only lets you through if your passport's valid. So they take a look at your face, they confirm it with your passport, then they type into a database and to see if anything's amiss. There is a similar process for an email server. It looks at where the email came from. They confirm that there isn't any obvious reason to reject the email on its face, i.e., it doesn't look like you're spamming, spoofing, scamming. Then they ask the sending server, your server, if anything is amiss. If you don't supply your ID or your sending server doesn't confirm your ID, you probably aren't getting through. Imagine trying to cross the border without a passport. And remember, spammers, scammers, and spoofers oftentimes play fast and loose with these things, so don't be like them. All right, moving quickly on, sending infrastructure. Email roughly works like this. As you can see from this diagram, Apollo is sitting in the middle there, but Apollo isn't sending your emails. I'm going to say that one more time. Apollo is not sending your emails. They aren't providing any emailing infrastructure at all. The infrastructure comes into play after you've set things up and queued it up in Apollo, like an email, text, and other things, and then triggered it to send. Most people in this call today are sending from Outlook, from Google Mail, or if you're a bit more advanced, you're sending via SendGrid. But from wherever you're sending, the most important message is don't abuse the infrastructure. So here are your guidelines for infrastructure. And I'm going to spend a few minutes on this slide, and we're going to go into some great detail so you understand what I mean here. Don't abuse, don't look like you're abusing, and no sudden upticks in sending. So spammers, spoofers, and scammers abuse email service providers to get their emails sent. They do things like using email newsletter software to send cold emails, or setting up dozens of Google Workspace accounts to try to slide under the radar of Google's rules. Don't be like them. The internet is full of well-meaning folks who think they're pulling a fast one on Google or MailChimp by doing this kind of thing. Use your head. A bit of abuse spread across 10 mailboxes is now just a lot of abuse. The internet and Google will catch you and punish you. I promise. Basically, make sure that wherever you're sending from, you aren't directly violating their rules. I'm not a lawyer, as you can probably tell, and I don't want to split hairs, but much of your sendability problems are rooted in the fact that it looks like you're abusing Google and Microsoft's infrastructure. And that means you're violating their acceptable use policy or their terms of service. That gives them the right to basically throttle you down or boot you off. My team is never surprised when folks come to us and they say, hey, we've been burned by doing this kind of thing. The good news is that transitioning to a safer and more legitimate sending path is not usually as painful and doesn't take as much time as you'd imagine. Also, it's important to note, one of Google and Microsoft's biggest fears is that someone breaks into your legitimate email account and starts to send emails out pretending to be you. So if Google or Microsoft see a sudden uptick in email sends, they don't think, oh, the salespeople are busy. They think, oh my gosh, we need to move to stop it. Yes, it's a sort of a case of like mistaken identity, but they have a legitimate reason to think that you might be a spammer, spoofer, or spammer. So they kind of treat you like that. Pro tip, don't blame parts that don't matter. Apollo is not sending your emails. An email service provider is. So blaming Apollo for your poor deliverability is sort of like blaming the pharmacy if your medicine didn't work. If you change pharmacies, but don't change the medicine, it will continue to not work, placebo effects aside. How you're using Apollo might be an issue though. So that's a good segue into the next section, which is email copy. What is in your email matters. Here are your guidelines for email copy. Almost all legitimate email sent in the world has links in it. You don't have to be afraid of links, but you do need to be afraid of redirects. That's where a link doesn't go directly where it needs to. It has other places it goes to in the meantime. You can imagine that a spammer, scammer, or spoofer makes heavy use of redirects. It's a perfect place to hide a bit of code or to divert your traffic to a preferred destination or have pop-ups in the middle and all sorts of craziness. Your email signature should be information rich, even including your full name, title, and company address, because you guessed it, spammers, spoofers, and scammers don't want you to know who they are, so they're not going to be including this information. Makes sense, right? In your signature, be careful with having heavy images or too much HTML, but a little bit of imagery and a little bit of HTML, probably not going to hurt you that much, and also might make you look a little bit more legitimate to the person who actually receives your mail. including words that spammers use, like dollar signs, writing things in all caps, should be avoided for sure. There are spam checking tools out there. Use them, but also use your head. If something about your offering could be misconstrued as manipulative, you can run into trouble even if you're avoiding certain words. So get comfortable with euphemisms, and don't walk yourself into any obvious issues. Okay, here's a pro tip. Don't go overboard with links. And definitely don't link to anything like a Google Drive that isn't technically a redirect, but honestly, it's hard to tell what's on the other side, or a bunch of different file types could be in there. Make sense? There's a lot, pretty fast, I know, but it's a good thing you have playback on this thing. Are you starting to think a little bit more like a legitimate sender? Are you starting to realize perhaps that by inadvertently acting like a spammer, spoofer, or scammer, you might be causing your own email deliverability and sendability challenges? If so, it's okay. You're exactly where I was when I had my turning point I mentioned earlier. Granted, fixing all these things is easier said than done, but honestly, I believe that if you correct most of these problems, most of them can be followed pretty logically simply by changing your mindset. I mean, after all, my team at Senders spends all day consulting with companies who are facing these kinds of challenges. And the solution we offer essentially is to unwind, correct, and reset them back to looking and acting like a legitimate business sender. Granted, there's lots of bells and whistles and tricks in there to get true scale and other things like that. But at the end of the day, if you're acting like a legitimate business sender, you shouldn't really be having too many issues. And if issues do crop up, sometimes they're very odd issues and need very special attention. Okay, so before I turn my attention to talking about how to repair any damage you've already done, we're going to enter a lightning round. But before that, are we doing lightning round first, or you're going after?
You can do the lightning round now, and then I'll hop in
I'm
right
going to
after.
do a lightning round. We're going to get into a few more advanced things, and then Josh is going to speak, and then we're going to circle back around and talk about how to repair stuff. Sound good? Okay, this is the lightning round. Josh, I wish I had like a cool sound effect for this part. I didn't even think about it. But maybe if we're going to do another webinar with a lightning round, we can have a
No,
cool
I'm going to
sound.
do it. Pew, 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 pew,
Oh,
pew,
okay.
pew.
Wow. Lightning round. Okay. This is going to be a lot of information very fast. Bear with me. Cross-contamination happens. So there are basically 4 types of email happening inside most organizations, especially software companies. You have corporate mail, marketing mail, transactional mail, and sales mail. Corporate mail, your day-to-day email. Transactional mail are things like password resets or an automated analytics report that gets sent out. And then there's sales email, which is likely what you're doing via Apollo. Cross-contamination is real. A marketing email slip-up can tank your cold email deliverability and vice versa. Each one of these types of email should be going out from a different domain or subdomain, properly warmed DNS records, the whole 9 yards, and possibly even different pools of IP addresses. As senders, we help sort this out all the time. We call it email fencing. Good fences make good neighbors, after all. Second item, email dumping. Fully leverage the tools inside Apollo for spacing out the emails that you send. Gaps, 2 seconds to 90 seconds over an 8 to 10 hour period will help with your deliverability a lot. So don't dump emails. 3, audit your partners and affiliates. If you've given email addresses to anyone outside your company, like an outside salesperson or something, you've given a web app permission to send as you. Things like outsourced call centers or even customer support applications sometimes have this. They might be causing your email deliverability problems. They need to be moved to a separate domain, separate sending domain, separate sending infrastructure. You need to fence them off. 4, never stop optimizing. A/B test, get creative, try new things, try to be timely, try to be relevant, change up your copy, divide up your audiences, test. Don't try to make up for poor performance with volume. And 5, be ready for deliverability disruptions. Always have at least 2 domains or subdomains purchased or set up more than 45 days ago with perfect authentication and having been warmed up for more than 15 days prior to using. Remember that the warming must be done in the exact configuration as your real sending. If you change the configuration, like you move sending from Microsoft to Google, a lot of the warming gets reset. The internet goes, something changed. It's not the same. All makes sense? Pretty good lightning round. I don't know if we need the sound effect before and after, but before before we jump into what to do to fix deliverability problems, I'm going to pass the mic back to Josh. Josh is going to show off some Apollo features, some of which are so new that my team has yet to fully explore them, and I'm excited to see them myself.
Yes.
Back to you, Josh.
Thanks, Benny. You can stop sharing your screen. I'll take over in a second. Now, while I do, guys, I want to hear a couple things. Can you just like let us know in the chat if you're appreciating the content and if what Benny's running through is helpful for you guys? I really want to know. The second thing I'm going to do right now, I'm going to run another ticker. If you guys can't tell, I love these things. I love the tickers. We've actually made a checklist for you. Everything that Benny just covered and everything he's about to cover is in this checklist. So I'm going to run through some Apollo stuff right now, where I'm going to show you exactly what you can do to start improving deliverability in your Apollo account right now. But after that, Benny's going to talk you through how to fix your deliverability if it's messed up. So don't leave. This is super important stuff. Get the checklist. Okay, here it is, y'all. And I'm glad the haters stayed home today. You guys are enjoying the content. That really warms my heart. We put a lot of effort into this stuff. So here's my Apollo screen. I keep hearing from you guys in these webinars that it's hard for you guys to see. So I'm going to turn off the speaker videos while I'm in Apollo. Let me know if that doesn't work for you. All right. I'm going to run you guys through like 3 or 4 things, some of which are extremely new. They just came out today. Okay. I know the screen is really tiny, y'all. There's not much I can do about it if you're on a small monitor. So I apologize. I'm going to start by coming in the top right-hand corner of the screen. I'm going to click on the settings wheel and it's going to bring me to settings. What I'm going to do from here is I'm going to click on this button that says manage mailboxes. Now, the first thing I want to talk you through today, this day, Apollo just released the ability to add more mailboxes to Apollo. Previously, if you had a pro plan, you could have 2 mailboxes. If you had a custom plan, you could have 5. Today, a pro plan gets you 5 mailboxes and a custom plan gets you up to 15 mailboxes linked to Apollo. Now, let's talk about that, okay? Why would I want to do that? One of the things that's going to influence your deliverability is the number of emails that you send from your mailbox. In my previous webinar, we talked about looking like a normal mailbox, a normal sender. And Benny talked about looking like a legitimate sender. If you think about somebody who's not doing cold email, they're not sending 200 to 400 emails a day. Most people send maybe in the realm of 50 emails in a day. So what you can do is you can connect multiple mailboxes and kick your sending limit per mailbox down so that you have better deliverability on a per mailbox basis, okay? So that right now, guys, there's other tools out there that cost $50 to $80 a month that this is all they do. They don't have everything Apollo has in terms of the database, the contact information, the sequencing tools. This is incredible value. So I would highly recommend if you don't have a pro plan or a custom plan and you're struggling with deliverability, upgrade your plan. You can do that either by clicking manage plan on the left-hand side, or in about 5 minutes, I'm going to run a poll and I'll give you the opportunity to get in touch with sales and they'll hook you up with one of those plans. So first and foremost, I just covered 2 things, okay? One is kick that daily sending limit down. And 2 is link more mailboxes so you can still send the same volume of mail. Now, I do want to, one thing Benny mentioned was that, you have multiple domains, right? You want to have multiple domains and multiple subdomains. You'll notice I can connect mailboxes from different domains to Apollo. They don't all have to be from my primary domain. So if you guys looked at the email that I sent you for this webinar, it came from, I think, heyapollo.io, right? So that's something that Benny will talk more about in a second. The second thing I want to show you guys is something that's new. If you've added multiple mailboxes to Apollo, you need a way to rotate between those mailboxes, the emails that you send. So I'm going to come in here to the search tab and I'll show you what I mean. Let's say I want to email 3 or 4 people all at once. I'm going to add them to a sequence. When I do that, I have this little button here where I can auto assign the email mailbox I'm using to rotate through those 3 or 4 people. Okay. So what Apollo is going to do at this moment is it's going to look at how many sends are left on each mailbox based on the sending limit that you set. And it's going to decide which is the best mailbox to send from. Okay. So That's exactly what you'll want to do here. When you're sequencing people, if you have multiple mailboxes set up, have it rotate through the email addresses you want to use, and Apollo will distribute that volume across multiple email inboxes or multiple mailboxes for you. So not all of your emails are coming from one mailbox. Okay. So I've now showed you 3 things that you can do to improve your deliverability. Right after this call, I'm going to show you the 4th thing, and then I'm going to hand the time back over to Benny. So one question that you guys always ask is, hey, how do I set up my DNS records? And how do I know if they're set up correctly? Okay, I'm going to show you right now. You can go to Engage in Apollo, which is going to take you to the sequences area. And you can click on this button called Run Diagnostics. Now, this is going to show you, as you can see right here, for each of the domains you've connected to Apollo, if your SPF, DKIM, and DMARC record is set up correctly. You're going to want to do this on a regular basis, especially if you suspect your deliverability is getting worse. These things can break, okay? They can be set up incorrectly and they can break occasionally, and they'll need some attention and need some love. So you can come in here and you can go to Sequence Diagnostics and you can see exactly how your DNS records are performing. And yes, we intentionally have this one broken so you guys, I can showcase, what it looks like if something is wrong. Okay, those are 4 things that I just covered that you can do in Apollo today to improve your deliverability. I'm going to stop sharing my screen really quickly, and I'm going to hand the time back over to Benny in like 1 second. I'll stop that ticker from running across the bottom of the screen. What I am going to do right now, though, guys, if you would like an Apollo Pro or custom plan, I'm going to run a poll and just vote on this poll and say yes. Again, the benefit of a Pro plan or a custom plan is you can now add 5 mailboxes for Pro. You can add up to 15 mailboxes for custom. Absolutely insane value and absolutely incredible if you're looking to improve your deliverability. So I'm going to let that poll run. I'm going to drink some water and I'm going to take a look at the Q&A and see what we have in here. If you already have Pro, upgrade to custom, right? So if you already have custom, great job. Hopefully you're learning a lot of stuff in this webinar. Benny, how are you doing over there?
Now you can hear me. Aha.
Yes.
Great. I'm watching the questions over here. I think that once we finish the other portion, we can do the most insane lightning round and answer a bunch of these questions.
Absolutely. And I'm seeing people ask, can I pay someone to do this for me? You guys can pay Benny. Okay. And at the end of the webinar, I'm going to run another poll where you can request to get in touch with Benny. Okay. So also, while this poll is running, guys, find us on LinkedIn. Okay. Find Benny on LinkedIn. You can follow him right now. I'm happy to connect with anybody who wants to connect on LinkedIn as well. I know we both try and stay on top of our mailbox in LinkedIn and try and get back to people when we can. So if you have ongoing questions, you just want to follow people who talk about this stuff, give us a follow. Okay, I'm going to let this poll run for just like 1 more minute. By the way, guys, if a lot of you guys don't say yes to the poll, Apollo will beat me with a cane. So I'm just kidding. They won't do that, but they could. I don't know. It hasn't happened yet. I'm going to let the poll run for like 10 more seconds. If you're interested in talking to our sales team about a Pro plan or a custom plan, please say yes. We'll get in touch with you. And then we're going to get the show on the road in terms of how to fix your deliverability if you have damaged it. All right, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Can I get like 4 more yeses and I'll stop counting? There we go. It's coming in. Poll's going to close in 2, 1 second. All right, closing the poll. Stop sharing. Thank you all so much. Benny, this is your show. You want to take it back over?
Yes, let me do that. Let me get my screen set properly so everyone can see what I can see. All right. Awesome. Okay, we're back. Thanks so much, Josh. Let's talk about what to do if you have a deliverability problem. If you're prepared, you won't need to panic. If you already followed all the advice I talked about earlier, your path to recovery is very, very simple and straightforward. If you haven't prepared, you'll be set back the exact amount of time it takes to get prepared. So here are your recovery guidelines. stop using the damaged domain and put it into artificial warming until all signs point to health. Could be weeks, could be months. Run an audit across everything outlined in this presentation. Are you acting like a spammer, spoofer, scammer? Or at this point, you could get help from a professional. For example, we run audits and fix issues like this all day long. So that's basically what we're trying to do with a lot of folks. Then you need to rotate in a ready domain, one that's properly aged and warmed, and set it up in Apollo to send. Then you need to scale up very slowly, adding 25 additional sends per day and sending to your most receptive audiences first. So some pro tips. If you're sending via SendGrid, you might have to rotate IP addresses, change IP pools completely, or run much deeper and more complex diagnostics to assess your issues. Don't forget, SendGrid is a power tool. It's not really like a consumer grade thing. So you're playing with some heavy duty stuff there. So there might need some heavy duty fixes in order to get your SendGrid working in the way you need it to. Next, you need to confirm that you're only sending to verified leads. And consider exporting your data from Apollo and using additional lead cleaning tools if you need. You might even need to filter out what are called accept all email addresses, which could have a higher chance of bouncing. So it's a sort of deeper clean or like some sort of power cleaning. And lastly, get used to leveraging Apollo's other tools, like the LinkedIn tools, the telephone tools. There are other ways to generate leads beyond cold emailing, and sometimes deliverability disruption is the perfect time to use those. And my final piece of advice is get help. You're all doing it. You're here. You're learning more. We're strengthening your knowledge base. The team at Apollo, my team at Senders, your own company's internal IT team, if you have folks like that, and the wider community are all invested in your success. Outbound is not a zero-sum game. Really, it's not. There's enough to go around for everyone, and everyone should try to support each other on their path to being and acting like a legitimate business sender. The legitimate sender that you are. So some quick thank yous before I hand it back to Josh, or we go to the Q&A or whatever's next. Thank you to the team at Apollo, Janet, Josh, and others working behind the scenes to make this happen. And thank you to my team at Senders, including my deliverability team, who taught me almost everything that I know. And thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you, Benny. If you can stop sharing your screen, I'm going to run a poll. Guys, if you want professional help with your deliverability and you're feeling like you've made mistakes and you need to come back from the brink, Benny and the Senders.co team are your people, okay? Now, for those of you who've been following our webinar program for a while, I don't bring people onto these webinars lightly. We vet these people well. We make sure that this content is really solid. And Benny passed with flying colors. So please just say yes to the poll if you want a consultation with him and his team. They'll reach out to you and they'll help you figure out the next steps from there. While we run that poll, we're going to go ahead and we're going to pop into the Q&A. So
should we do this?
What's that?
Should we do this?
Do what? The Q&A?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing it right now. So
how do you want to do it?
I'm gonna lob some at you, Benny. I'll go through and then we'll just.
Oh, really? I was thinking like you just start at the top and be like, we're gonna get through all of them. But if you want to lob some to me, that's fine too. Yeah.
There's hundreds in here. There's no way we can get.
We can do it. We can.
Yeah. Here's one. Camellia asks, "What's the maximum number of emails you would suggest to send from the same email?"
Okay. I think you need to work backwards. You need to say, how many interested replies am I getting and how many can I legitimately handle per day, first and foremost. That's a really, really important thing to understand. If you're a hungry hippo, all Americans catch that reference. Maybe you don't. That's fine. If you're just someone that like, I need more leads, more all the time, you can sometimes get into a really wild rabbit hole where you're sending more and not getting returns you need. If you're getting a 1% interested reply rate, and you can really only handle 5 leads a day, then 500 is your magic number, and you need to figure out a way to get your deliverability set up in such a way that can handle that. So I don't have a definitive answer for you, but I really think you should work backwards from what kind of goals you have and what kind of interested replies you're getting, and work really earnestly to improve your emails to try to improve your response rate first and foremost.
Cool. I think I agree with everything you said. I do go a little bit further. I personally would never send more than 100 emails from a mailbox a day. I If I had my druthers, I'd go 25 to 50. Now that being said, I tend to have good results from cold email. If you want to know how to get better results from your cold email, we have a webinar on email copywriting. We also will have a webinar in October also on email copywriting with Sam McKenna, one of the best salespeople in the world. So stick around for that. Okay. Somebody just asked, Benny, does it really make a difference to set up quarantine or reject in your, I think it was in your DMARC?
Okay.
Yeah.
So no, it doesn't really matter as long as there's a word that gets thrown around in the email deliverability world. It's DNS alignment. DNS alignment. If you Google DNS alignment, a lot of things come up. DNS alignment doesn't just mean that your DNS records are correct. It actually for DMARC, they actually need to be aligned. In other words, if you're accepting, rejecting, et cetera, something that has to do with your SPF record has to be accurate too. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, it might have some effect in some way for DMARC, as long as your DMARC is aligned with your other records.
Cool. Or that's helpful. Guys, I'm going to close the senders poll in about 20 seconds. So if you want to talk to Benny and his team,
yeah, guys, come on. I got time on my calendar. Let's do it.
Yeah.
We've
only got almost 200 people who've said yes for you, Benny. So
it's okay. I got a whole team. We can rack them. Oh, we got 200 already. Jeez.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
I'm going to be doing a 24-hour marathon to do it.
This is a good question from Rahul. Can you suggest ways of getting email domains out of blacklists?
Okay, so there are a few ways to get out of blacklists. Some blacklist providers, you can actually appeal to them. But here's something that most people don't tell you about blacklists. They don't keep your email or your domain in a blacklist forever. Oftentimes they cycle out. Some of them are 30 days, 3 months, 6 months. So oftentimes if you roll a domain off of sending and you be a very, very good school child, then magically you're removed from these blacklists over time. They don't usually blacklist you forever indefinitely.
Awesome. I opened the poll again for Apollo. I'm just going to keep switching off for those of you who are curious. And
I think people are playing games with you, Josh.
I know people.
I think all the people who are already on a pro or custom plan are just saying no thanks. And I think that's what's actually happening.
I am 100% okay with that. All right, we have a lot more questions. We're going to stay till the top of the hour, guys. And really quickly, I'm going to run something really fast. This is Benny's LinkedIn. And this is a ticker I'm going to run across the screen. Just follow Benny. He writes a lot of good content about
You're so funny.
Yeah.
I actually post very sparingly, but from now I probably will post a little bit more.
Okay, I'm going to take one from Eduardo. Cold calls. How good are they nowadays as people don't have time receiving a lot of robot call? I don't like receiving calls. So Eduardo, this is a great question. I personally have, across my career, I have found that calls and emails make each other more effective. So I highly recommend, and Apollo actually has some data here. If you have a sequence that's email only and versus a sequence that has at least 2 phone calls in it, the sequence with phone calls is 42% more likely to lead to a meeting than the sequence with email only. So that should tell you something. Now I think there are caveats there, right? Phone calls perform best when you're calling within the same country that you live. And people expect to hear somebody who kind of they expect on the other end of the phone, right? I think it's really hard. If I was an American and I'm making cold calls into Germany and a German person picks up the phone and hears an American accent, they're going to be like, get out of my face. So there's some caveats there, which isn't to say that you shouldn't make cold calls if that's not for you, if that doesn't describe you. But I think cold calls are really effective. If you're not doing them now and you're not seeing the results you want to see from your outbound program, try it. Sequences in Apollo we have analytics that can tell you how effective your sequences are. It can really make the difference for you. Okay, I'm going to see, is it important to have an unsubscribe link on your emails? Now, I have strong feelings about this, but Benny, I'm going to see what you think about it.
Oh, man. I believe yes. I believe 100% yes. I think that if you're thinking about the framework I talked about before, about looking like a spammer, scammer, spoofer, an unsubscribe link that works, that's kind of table stakes. whether it's small, where it's big, where it's at the bottom or somewhere else, like doesn't really matter so much as long as there really is one. I think if you look at the spam law itself, which I recommend everyone go and read because I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to interpret it for you. The method that they say you have to have is unsubscribe methodology that works. And having one that works doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be a link. But if I was building an email service and I was receiving emails en masse and I saw emails that had an unsubscribe, that would probably make me feel more comfortable about delivering it.
Awesome. Helpful. I closed the poll. So we've got both polls are closed. If you want an Apollo demo, there's still a button at the top of the screen. If you want a sender's demo, just reach out to Benny on LinkedIn, I think, right?
Sure. Anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Email, LinkedIn, whatever, Benny@senders.co. Just drop me a note. Happy to help.
Okay, so Amy asked, why use Senders alongside Apollo? Unclear. Okay, so to be very clear, Senders is not a software product, okay? Benny and his team are a service provider. They help people improve their deliverability. Apollo is a software tool. You know, we have deliverability features, but we're not a team of deliverability experts who can intervene and fix your deliverability. I hope that was more clear for you, Amy.
Yeah, sorry, we should have maybe gotten into the weeds for that.
But we definitely should have broken that down. Okay, so Kashish is asking, I've seen some email domains adding an image under the signature, also landing to spam while testing. What is that reason? So this is something I'll take, and then I'll see what Benny's thoughts are as well.
Sure.
I don't believe in sending images, period. I think that images are going to trigger spam filters way more often than not, with one caveat here. If you have already established a stream of email with someone, so let's say I email you, you email me back, I email you an image that's relevant to our conversation, that's fine. But if I'm emailing somebody cold for the first time, an image can make me look like a spammer or a spoofer, which I'm sure Benny can unpack. So yeah, go for it.
Here's the thing that most people don't really explain about what's going on with email. Age domains and established companies, if you work at a company that has an age domain and you're a very established company, potentially one that's been around since 2010 or 2005 or 1990 or something, an image in your email is not going to matter that much. What happens is folks spin up new domains, even if they're older companies. They put images in emails, or they don't size the image properly, like in their signature. And that creates a lot of deliverability issues, because at the end of the day, a logo in your signature just looks like or feels like an attachment of some sort. So I'm not saying you need to be totally afraid or cagey about these things. You don't have to be like Josh and like overly protective, have no images at all. Although if you remove images, it can help. Keep in mind that removing images doesn't mean you're not designing your signature in some like nice way. So a little bit of HTML isn't going to hurt that much. But if you are experiencing deliverability problems and you do have some sort of thing in your footer of your email, totally makes sense. Remove it, scale it down, experiment with ways to sort of sideline it without hurting your look of credibility, and, you know, see if that helps.
Awesome. Okay, another question that came in that I really liked. If you're sending white labeled on behalf of multiple clients, is it better to have multiple subdomains off a single root domain or multiple root domains?
Well, that's a little bit of like a loaded question, because I don't know exactly what kind of operation you're running. Are you a marketplace that's sending emails in a certain way, or are you a cold email outbound vendor of some sort where you're running Apollo on behalf of clients? I'm not really sure. That said, keep in mind that, remember we talked about email fencing? If they're totally separate companies with totally separate pitches, it might make sense to have them on separate domains that are properly warmed. An individual client, you could have multiple subdomains that attach to that one parent domain. Now, that said, if you're doing these things at a low volume and everything makes sense in some sort of other way, then maybe having everything on one root domain with subdomains wouldn't be the end of the world. But good fences make good neighbors. So it's possible that you do need to work a little bit harder to separate things out.
Love that. I'll take one here from Carlos. This is going back to the subject of unsubscribe links. He says, which real person sending a manual email sends an unsubscribe link? Sort of the argument against an unsubscribe link.
Sure.
My counter to that is most real people don't also send 3 or 4 follow-up emails. So if you want to land in spam for sure, don't include a link, because the only out you're giving someone is to mark you as spam.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. Is
That's the tricky. I think that folks have to remember. I've sound like Barack Obama calling everyone folks. Folks have to remember that there are ways to end up in the spam folder that have nothing to do with anyone clicking spam. So if the email receiving server goes, this looks a little weird, we'll deliver it, but we'll put it in spam, for example, then it's kind of like game over. So it's possible that by sending lots of emails in a row without an unsubscribe link, you enhance the ability for the automated systems to go, this seems fishy, I'm going to put it in spam. I.e., they're not even putting it in like a non-priority inbox. We'll be like, well, it has an unsubscribe link, so that means it might be marketing. We'll put it there and see what happens, which is far preferable than putting things into spam. The other side of this, as Josh said, if you're sending people an email multiple times and they archive it 2 or 3 times, you kind of could hit their limit and they just mark it as spam, because then they're sure that it won't come back in. The thing is, people marking things as spam, according to everyone that Josh has talked to at Google and when we've talked to Google, and everyone goes, wow, when someone clicks something and marks it as spam, we take that really seriously. That means that if you sent 100 emails in a day and 4, 5, or 6 of them are, it's your 5th email in a sequence, and those are the ones that go, this guy, and they mark it as spam, that's a 5% human spam report rate. And Google goes, whoa, we got a spammer on our hands. Like, we have to stop this. So the ricochet effects can be really, really huge, much, much less than someone clicking an unsubscribe link. So that is to say that you might think you're pulling a fast one, I'm being a human and I'm not doing this thing. But the ramifications of not doing it, of not putting the unsubscribe link, could be much, much bigger than just whoever goes, oh, this isn't a real email, I'm going to mark it as for unsubscribe.
I appreciate that color, Benny. I think you're spot on. All right, we're going to take 2 more questions. The next one, this has come up a lot. What is BIMI? B-I-M-I.
BIMI is a way that Google has designed to, I think Google designed it, I have to fact check that, to register the logo for your company to go along with sending. It is not required to do. And I believe it only appears in certain web browsers in certain ways. So unless there's some sort of change moving forward where it's actually going to help with deliverability tremendously, it's probably not something you need to worry too much about. Although I believe that for a lot of our clients, when we go through the process, we do add it for some, but not for all.
Cool. I hope that was helpful, guys.
That could be cool. We can do more content on that too at some point. I can dig into it and try to get more comprehensive.
I think so. And I think for those of you who are still here, we've got over 1,000 people here. I really appreciate you guys staying. Because you stayed, I'm tease this. We are launching more deliverability features in Apollo in October and November. A lot more. Everything you guys have been asking for, pretty much, we're building it. I would love to pick this thread back up with you then, Benny. We can introduce that new stuff. We can talk
for sure.
About
and all these questions, you guys have asked all these questions. If it was allowed, it's definitely not allowed. So I'm not going to put Josh in the spot. I would literally answer every single one of these questions. So maybe what we should do, you guys can, man, how are we going to get all these questions over? I don't know.
We can export them from Goldcast. We can send them to you.
Will I know who the people are? Will I have their email?
Yeah. We have all that. Let me lob one more at you though. One more. Okay. All right. If you want to be the last question, actually, I've just taken it. So I've seen this 3 or 4 times. People have asked, should I use SendGrid? What's your take on SendGrid, Benny?
So the work that we do, we cannot do without SendGrid. I will say that. SendGrid, as I mentioned, is a power tool. So getting it set up and getting it working and running properly is not very easy. And if it's easy for you, that's great, but maintaining it might be tricky. So it's hard for me to give a full-throated, like, yes, go set up SendGrid. Yes, go do it. I think that it might be overkill for a lot of people. It might create a lot of confusion for people. But if it's the case where you have 2, 3, 4, 5 senders, you're at a good clip, you've optimized the crap out of everything, you're feeling super good, but you just need to get more volume, then SendGrid could be an option. Enlist an IT person, come to us. We can help either move you to our SendGrid and get you going with all the features we have, or potentially give you advice on how to get it set up yourself. Although that isn't something we try to do very often because you can run into issues pretty quickly with it.
And with that, we're at the end of time, 45 seconds left. Benny, huge thank you to you. For everyone who came
Thanks,
to this
guys, for
webinar,
hosting me. I appreciate it.
it was our pleasure. And for the attendees here, thank you so much for coming. We do this for you. This really isn't for us, it's for you. We hope you get value from it. If you didn't, let me know. I want to hear about it. Find me on LinkedIn, send me an email. But we'll be back in a couple weeks with another webinar with Jamal Reimer on how to close the biggest deals of your life. It's going to be fire.
That sounds pretty good. I should watch that too.
Come to it. We'll see you then, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.